From a terrifying crater in Chile that emerged in the middle of a dirt road, to a disaster in El Salvador that left several houses teetering on the edge of a cliff, and a colossal sinkhole that unexpectedly appeared in the heart of a Russian coal mining town, swallowing an entire neighborhood, here are 10 of the deepest sinkholes ever captured on camera. Number 10. Guatemala City is the capital and largest city in the Central American nation of Guatemala. It's the most populous city in Central America, with about 1 million residents and nearly 3 million in the metro area. In May of 2010, the area experienced heavy rains as Tropical Storm Agatha moved inland. This isn't too surprising. We see this sort of thing all the time with tropical storms. What was surprising was the giant sinkhole that opened in the middle of the city. It swallowed an entire 3-story building and killed 15 people. The sinkhole was over 65 feet wide and 300 feet deep. A bad storm couldn't do this by itself. Something else had to be going on. According to the Guatemalan government, the hole was likely caused by the city's poor infrastructure. The government laid many sewer and drain pipes underneath the city in the 1950s. Unfortunately, the material they used couldn't hold up to the task. They used materials similar to those for common pipes in household toilets. Since then, things have slowly degraded. Over time, water eroded much of the ground below the city, making it highly susceptible to collapse. With nowhere else to go, the city of Guatemala filled the hole with cement and steel rods. Number 9. Puebla is one of the 32 states in Mexico, located in the southern part of the country, about 80 miles southeast of Mexico City. This landlocked state is known for its agribusiness, with numerous farms and fields surrounding the capital city. However, one particular farm stands out due to a massive sinkhole that appeared on May 29, 2021. On that day, Magdalena and Herberto Sanchez heard a strange noise coming from their fields. They quickly went outside and discovered a 70,000 square foot sinkhole just feet from their home. Tragically, the couple had recently invested $335,000 in remodeling their house, only to be told by Mexican authorities that they needed to evacuate. Locals believe the farmland was established over an old pond, which had filled in over time but never became stable enough for farming and human activity. Environmental authorities offered a different, scientific explanation. They suggested that over-extraction from the Balsas River Basin network, which spans several states including Puebla, had depleted aquifers, softening the soil and causing the sinkhole to open. The sinkhole was filled with water when discovered, exhibiting strong currents and a peculiar pattern of depleting around 3 or 4 a.m., then refilling by midday. This has led many to believe that the water flows in and out from an underground river. Unfortunately, Magdalena and Herberto could never return to their home, and it remains unclear if the Mexican government provided any assistance or compensation for new housing. Number 8. Tierra Amaria, a small mining community in north-central Chile, is home to about 13,000 residents, many of whom work in the nearby copper mines. On August 1, 2022, a sinkhole opened near the La Perosa mine. Initially 80 feet wide, it quickly expanded to over 200 feet wide by August 8. At a depth of 656 feet, it could fit the Washington Monument with about 100 feet to spare on the sides. Fortunately, the nearest home was about 2,000 feet away, so unless the sinkhole grew exponentially, residents were safe. To ensure safety, London Mining Corp shut down the La Perosa mine. Chile, the world's largest copper producer, supplies about 25% of the global copper demand. Shutting down even one mine can have significant global impacts. Eager to resume operations, London Mining had to await government approval, as Chile's government has absolute authority over all mines. When the sinkhole appeared, officials quickly pointed fingers at the mining companies. Mining Minister Marcela Hernando planned to impose heavy sanctions on the company if found responsible. The property is owned by two companies, Canada's London Mining, which holds 80%, and Japan's Sumitomo Metal Mining, which holds 20%. Both companies denied that overexploitation caused the sinkhole. Number 7. Winter Park is a small city in Orange County, Florida. It's home to about 30,000 people, some of whom remember a scary day in 1981. An acre-wide sinkhole opened up, swallowing a home, several businesses, a community swimming pool, and part of a Porsche dealership. But it wasn't like this sinkhole opened without warning. In 1972, a local expert wrote a letter warning of sinkhole danger. They were overdeveloping the area and extracting too much groundwater. Of course, nobody wanted to listen. Then in May of 1981, during a period of record low water levels in Florida's limestone aquifer, a massive sinkhole opened near the corner of Denning Drive and Fairbanks Avenue. It began near May Rose Williams' house. Within hours, she watched a 40-year-old sycamore tree fall into the depths. The hole grew over 40 feet wide by the following day. May said it sounded like giant beavers chewing as the hole devoured her land. Later that morning, May noticed her home slipping into the hole. She evacuated with her family and their prized possessions. By mid-afternoon, the entire house had fallen into the sinkhole. The sinkhole grew to 320 feet wide and 90 feet deep by May 9. Some 250,000 cubic yards of earth had fallen in, along with 5 Porsches, a pool, and most of Denning Drive. Today, the Winter Park sinkhole is a giant body of water called Lake Rose. It's named after the woman whose house still sits at the bottom. Number 6. Baris Niki and Solikamsk are the second and third largest cities in the Perm region of western Russia, situated atop both abandoned and operational potash salt mines, some nearly 1,000 feet deep. Potash, a key fertilizer potassium, originally got its name from being extracted from wood ashes in iron pots. Baris Niki once thrived as an industrial city with around 150,000 residents but is now sinking. In the 1980s, massive craters began to form where miners had excavated salt, swallowing factories, offices, homes, and schools. The first significant sinkhole appeared in 1986, consuming mine number 3, which was flooded for safety but continued to expand. Today, it spans about 700 feet across and 360 feet deep. Mining activities in Baris Niki over nearly a century left deep voids prone to collapse. Earthquakes between 1993 and 2005, with magnitudes ranging from 2.0 to 5.0 on the Richter scale, worsened the situation by loosening the soil. In 2006, a freshwater spring began flowing into the void 720 to 1,500 feet below the surface, eroding supporting pillars and causing part of the city to collapse. 3 more sinkholes emerged in the area, including one in 2007 near mine number 1. Triggered by a failed gas line. In 2006, a freshwater spring began flowing into the void 720 to 1,500 feet below the surface, eroding supporting pillars and causing part of the city to collapse. 3 more sinkholes emerged in the area, including one in 2007 near mine number 1, triggered by a failed gas line. This sinkhole started at over 160 feet wide and nearly 50 feet deep, eventually growing to over 1,400 feet wide and nearly 330 feet deep. Solikamsk, about 30 minutes north of Baris Niki, faces similar threats. In November 2014, disaster struck when one of its mines was at risk of collapsing. The UD Alalai mining company evacuated employees and flooded the area, but a sinkhole still formed. Initially 100 feet wide, it kept growing, swallowing everything in its path, including nearby houses. Today, it measures 410 feet wide and over 240 feet deep, large enough to fit a small neighborhood. Number 5. San Salvador is the capital and largest city in El Salvador. It's considered the country's educational, financial, and political center. The metro area itself consists of 13 municipalities and about 2.4 million people. That's about half of the country's entire population. Then again, El Salvador isn't actually that big of a country. They're a little bit smaller than Massachusetts. In October of 2019, a giant sinkhole opened up in the capital, forcing widespread evacuations. Homes teetered on the edge of an area about the size of a soccer field. According to reports, the area was on the verge of collapse for several years. Then heavy tropical rains pulled the rug out from underneath. You can see how the hole cut residents off from the other side of town. It kept growing after it opened. The latest reports had it at about 230 feet deep. Home building in the area dates back to 1999. They began noticing problems in the area in 2008 as the land shifted from all the construction. They tried to mitigate the problem, but it resurfaced again in 2016. Then, in 2019, the ground finally gave way. Number 4. Dnipro, Ukraine, now shortened to Dnipro, is the 4th largest city in the country. It's home to about 1 million people and sits about 243 miles southeast of Kiev. The area used to be part of the Soviet Union, but that obviously changed in the early 90s. Dnipro joined independent Ukraine in 1991, but the road ahead wasn't easy. In June of 1997, a sinkhole opened under the city. Over 3,500 people were forced to evacuate their homes. Military personnel arrived to help people move their prized possessions. Unfortunately, they couldn't do anything to save their homes, schools, and businesses. In some places, it looked like the buildings would hold on, but as cracks appeared and the sinkhole expanded, those structures inevitably collapsed. Many watched as buildings fell into the 1,500-foot abyss. According to the Ukrainian government, a nearby dam and mining complex were to blame. They excavated too much material from the area and the ground became unstable. Unfortunately, there was no quick fix. They couldn't just pour the ground back in. Instead, they had to wait for the area to settle and then reinforce the ground and rebuild everything that was lost. Number 3. Dahwa County is in the Guangxi Autonomous Region of southern China. It's not far from the Vietnam border. Dahua is a fairly rural area. There's plenty of farmland, villages, and beautiful scenery in every direction. Unfortunately, the area is also home to one of the scariest sinkholes on Earth. In 2016, a giant hole opened up, swallowing several fields. It kept growing until it engulfed a farmer's house. He was one of 600 people who had to evacuate their homes. This isn't the first time Dahwa County has had sinkhole problems. Residents have been reporting them since 2001. The most recent opened in early August of 2016. It was only a few feet wide and deep at first. Then the hole grew to about 100 feet wide and 300 feet deep. It swallowed the farmer's house and water well. Unfortunately, he had nowhere else to go. He stayed as close to the edge of the sinkhole as possible, hoping to salvage any property. According to local authorities, they have nowhere to send these people. The land is scarce and their lives have been put on hold indefinitely. They haven't figured out how to solve the problem. There's so much rain in the area that water easily seeps through the limestone and erodes the ground. While there are some places to avoid building, the entire area is prone to sinkholes. Number 2. Shuo is a city in the northeastern area of Jiangsu province in eastern China and is known for its central role in transportation across the country. Considering how much the city depends on its roads and highways, you can picture the problems that sinkholes might create. In November of 2016, surveillance cameras recorded a huge sinkhole forming in the center of the street. Some motorists managed to cross just in time before the ground gave way. A few were caught off guard by the sudden collapse. It's hard to tell from the CCTV footage, but there is a small divot forming right in the middle of the road. A security guard points it out as a blue truck drives over cautiously. An SUV approaches from the other side and almost crosses before the ground gives way. It falls into the sinkhole along with another red car. Time skips in the footage show the red car sinking deeper as two people appear at the bottom to help. A crowd gathered around the sinkhole, which was much larger than the security footage made it look. 5 people got trapped inside, but rescue workers got them all out safely. Number 1. Xiamen, China is a sub-provincial city in Fujian province. It's home to about 5.1 million people spread across 5 major districts. They rely on an intricate network of subways and highways to get around the city, but on December 12 of 2019, everyone was better off staying home. That's because a freak sinkhole opened under the road right near the metro station, and it was all caught on this driver's dash cam. Several cars, including a taxi, were swallowed. Our driver was lucky enough to stop before falling in. The sinkhole caused the sewage pipe to burst, which flooded the Luo subway station. Before you even ask, we don't even want to think about what's in all that murky water. It turns out, though, that the pipe was already leaking, which caused the sinkhole to open in the first place. Some aftermath footage puts the size of the sinkhole into perspective. Thankfully, nobody got hurt when their cars fell into the hole. They were lucky. The ground collapsed beneath them, and they simply fell with the concrete. The taxi driver remembers driving along and then suddenly feeling like he was falling. As soon as they landed, he rushed to help his passenger, and both climbed to safety. Thank you for watching another episode of Just Discovery. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on more exciting content. See you next time.